Good evening. Welcome to Matters of the Soul. My name is Erich. We are talking about narcissism tonight. What is narcissism? The narcissist, uh, narcissistic personality disorder. We're talking about a lot of those things tonight, and yes, it's. I'm happy to chat with you tonight and on the next couple of programs because I think this is a topic that is not just going to be covered in one session. So I'm just going to spend some time talking about it from a Christian point of view, like the biblical viewpoint, but also lots of psychological stuff out there, and what it is. So we are going to start with the question: what is narcissism? But there's a lot to say about this. Just to give some intro to why I'm talking about this. Um, I think this is something that goes around on social media a lot at the moment. A lot of people are aware of the term narcissism and what a narcissist is. I think many of you actually have read up on it and so I'm not probably not going to give you a lot of new info, but you're listening, so you probably want to hear what I have to say about it. Um, but it's also because I've seen in my practice um, a lot of dilemmas, as it were, with the term narcissism, and I'll share some of what I've experienced and what my own thoughts about it is, because I think it's important for us to understand and to have a look at this. So the idea also tonight is to understand yourself, and my idea here is also to prayerfully consider some of the things you are hearing, and to also ask the Lord to talk to you and to help you, because that is what a narcissist won't genuinely do. They won't really do the soul work and ask the Lord to work with him. That's not going to happen. Okay, but let me start off with some information here on what you're going to get. A lot of information tonight, so please hang in there. I want to give you some ideas. So we are going to talk about the clinical disorder, narcissistic personality disorder, and it's even linked. There are some related disorders here: sociopathy, psychopathy, psychopath, and then borderline personality disorder that'll come up in the next couple of programs. Even antisocial personality disorder, and I don't even know that one. That's the real clinical word for a psychopath in a sense. Dr. Robert Hare is one of the minds around psychopaths, and he says narcissistic, borderline, and antisocial combined actually makes a quite an interesting combination. But that is the psychopath. But in any case, let's have a look firstly at where does this come from. Narcissism. There's a legend in Greek mythology of the guy. His name is Narcissus. This baroque, he got this name. Apparently, what happened with him, and I'm going to read something for you here because I just won't remember it. The most popular version of the story is by Ovid in his work Metamorphosis, in which Echo, a mountain nymph, encounters Narcissus, a beautiful young man who rejects her advances. So that means Echo probably beautiful. Heartbroken, Echo lives out her life in desolation until only an echo of her voice remains. Nemesis, the goddess of revenge, punishes Narcissus by luring him to a pool of water, in which he catches an image of himself, and not realizing it is his own reflection, falls in love with it. The more he gazes, the more infatuated he becomes. Eventually, he realizes that his love can never be reciprocated, and condemned to the same fate that he had inflicted on Echo, he remains in despair, fixated by his image until death. Echo at his side repeats his last words. Can you see this is he was in love with his own image? Okay, but that's now just the mythological, and it was coined more than 125 years ago. But let's look at the term first. There's there you get narcissism, and then you also get narcissistic personality disorder. Those are not the same things. So you have to distinguish between those two. So narcissism in itself refers to those feelings and attitudes that you have towards yourself, the core of a normal healthy esteem, as in self-esteem. So that's your feelings, your relationships, how you feel and view yourself. So narcissism is actually quite a normal, healthy word. Now, you won't find that term in Oxford and Britannica, and those, they say that narcissism is an excessive interest or admiration in yourself. So they relate it directly to narcissists. But in psychology, we have a continuum as it's such. So almost like a spectrum. If you think of autism spectrum disorder, you get from mild to a moderate to severe. It's the same with narcissism. And the theory says that we are all actually a bit narcissistic. So we all have narcissistic traits. And you actually get healthy narcissism. And then it leads up it actually grows, and it also develops into unhealthy narcissism. And I'll share some of those types of narcissism with you tonight as well in some of the coming programs. So there's a range. That's Nancy McWilliams that outlined a range of narcissism from healthy to seriously disturbed pathologies. So she said that on that continuum, you can get a healthy self-interest and self-love on the one hand. I mean, if somebody just said something very nasty to you, and it was wasn't provoked by you, it was not your fault, or whatever happened, and there was an injury to your self-esteem, and a healthy narcissism says, I must address that, and I must see it from where it comes from. I shouldn't just be totally toppled over by it, and assert myself and draw some boundaries. And so in a sense, that's healthy narcissism. But then as you extend and you go along that continuum or that spectrum, it becomes more and more pathological, until here at the end it becomes even very dangerous. It can become extremely dangerous to the end of the narcissistic range, where you can get even, I think, right at the end, the antisocial personality disorder. But narcissistic personality disorder lies here. Now, it's not so easy to identify where the point is, where you're crossing the divide between healthy and unhealthy narcissism. I think some people are 1 foot on the one end and another foot on the other end, so they share that. But I think if you, and I'll share some biblical thoughts with it, I think the Bible is quite clear that we all are, it's also confirming of this, that we're all selfish in the biblical term. We think of ourselves first. We regard ourselves above others. That's why you would hear Paul say, regard others above yourself. And it doesn't mean to dismiss yourself totally. It doesn't just means to think of others higher than yourself, to regard them. But it's because there's a natural tendency, the sinful tendency, to just look after the self at the expense of others. But now, if we are, so we're going to talk about narcissism, but then also about narcissistic personality disorder, and then where does this fit in? And so, in my idea in clinical practice, how many people really are NPD, narcissistic personality disorder, and in future programs, why in their relationships, where do they struggle? Why do they and borderline personality disorder people come together? And I also see overt and covert narcissism together as couples. So we'll have a look at those two as well. That's also very interesting, overt and covert narcissism. Okay, so, but let's look at the clinical definition. So DSM-5, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, number 5. I think I need a prize for just pronouncing that correctly. That's just a funny one. I'm going to give you this terrible definition. It's a pervasive pattern of grandiosity in fantasy or behavior, a need for admiration, and a lack of empathy, beginning by early adulthood and present in a variety of contexts. Can you see? Pervasive, it means it's all across their lives, lots of contexts, at work, at home, it's everywhere. And it's a pattern of grandiosity. I am better than you. You are not as good as I am. And it might be in their own minds, covert, under the radar, or overt in their behavior. hear it, you see it. There's a need for you to admire them. Or I think that need for admiration, I also see the need to win, the need to be in a one-up, to the need to control. I see that a lot. So the need for admiration, that's not a good enough description here, according to me, you know. And a lack of empathy. So they're not able to really put themselves in your shoes and to understand with warmth where you come from and to care, to connect with that. And it begins very early in adulthood. I think according to Freud, it begins earlier actually, and it's present everywhere in their lives. Now they say you need 5 or more of a following list of criteria to have an official diagnosis. So now we're talking about narcissistic personality disorder. So there are a list of personality disorders in the DSM, and that's just for that's on the spectrum. It lies on this side, so it's more on the severe side. So they have a sense of self-importance. They are grandiose. They exaggerate their achievements. You always hear them talk about how they've achieved stuff, how they could do stuff better. So you say something, hey, life's happening here around me. I don't know if you can hear it, dogs and cars and whatever. They, you know, when you're at a braai or wherever and you talk about something, they always have, they have a better answer. They always know better. They must know it all. You know, he knows everything. That guy is and he's important. He's the best or better. And if they are wrong, they won't acknowledge it. You'll be right, but they won't. There'll be some kind of a power struggle, you know. In their minds, they have dreams of unlimited power, success, physical attractiveness, love. Now, I think you'll see the typical picture is not really seen, I think, that common. They hold the belief that they are special or of a high status and they can only be understood by similar people or should only associate with those people or institutions. Now, earlier tonight in my preparation, I sang the song, I am the one and only. You remember that song? So I think, yeah, they are very special and they have an excessive need for admiration. So they want people to think that they are great. If you don't, so that's where the dilemma comes in. So they will try to shine, they will try to get the limelight and be in the limelight, and they possess a sense of entitlement. So it's like you owe them, you know. They are better than you, and they expect favorable treatment or compliance. So that's the guy at the restaurant who, you know, when he calls the waiter and craps the waiter out there, and they are just, you know, I mean, the poor family is just like, oh no, but that's that person, and they expect that favorable treatment or compliance, and they exploit other people to achieve their personal goals. They lack that empathy, like I said. They are envious of other people, or they think the other people envy them. Interesting, and they have arrogant behaviors and attitudes. Now you can typically think of this. People labeled poor Donald Trump with this. And said, yeah, he is this, you know. There are lots of figures in the public sphere that you can say this fits this bill. But that's why I talk about the spectrum tonight, to say I think narcissism actually occurs quite a lot more than just the pure narcissistic personality disorder. That person who wants to be in the limelight, who's the one-up, who's at the party, you see him, he's the shiner. You know, I do know people like that. I know a few, but I know a lot more people who are actually on the narcissism spectrum, and they're high up on the spectrum, and they don't really realize that they're that high up on the spectrum, and they have a lot of the similarities, and they also have a lot of the consequences of it. So front stage, in front of people, they'll be impressive. Just last week, somebody spoke about a narcissist. He said, this guy has a kind of an aura around him, you know, when he walks into the room, it's as if he owns the place. And he's always one up and he's always in control. And it's really like that. He enjoys name dropping, you know, they wear brand names. They display their status with their cars. Porsche, with their name on the number plate. I saw that. They're very competitive. They're usually self-made businessmen, sorry businessmen. Not all of you are narcissists. It's important. They often prestige members in their family, or they're tagged as destined for great things. They like to be surrounded by people who are subservient, who are obedient, who listen to them. So, and they engage in those show-off things, and they're always one better. Always, everything is one better. But backstage, they're insecure. They have to soothe their own selves through some kind of addiction, usually alcohol. Now, I'm going to give you 25 traits that I think is, and this is not a clinical picture, but I'm going to give you this, and I think this explains a lot. You'll see the spectrum. So keep in mind now, there's that severe narcissistic personality disorder that is a pattern that is pervasive. It's permanent almost. It sticks, and it's everywhere. And that person has very limited insight into their own behavior, and they don't actually care, and they are stuck there. But then you get people who are on the way there, and they share this. And even I've looked through this, and I thought, gee, I already share some of this. So we all share some of this, and the idea of not being a narcissist is to really reflect on this and think about what you're doing. They call it mentalizing, to work with the thoughts, the feelings, the attitudes you have, and to think about how it affects other people, and to ask the Lord, help me, to work with me, so that I can understand what is working, what is happening inside me. Why do I have this haughty attitude? Any case, but they ignore people's boundaries. That's like the first one. I saw that the other day in driving. The person would drive and pass on the left and just squeeze in front of other people, not disregard other people, and justify it in their mind. And I mean, the other people are so slow, but that person is breaking all the laws, not minding. So they will cross your physical boundaries, your property boundaries, and they don't. That you might not even pick up on this. Sometimes it's very subtle. They'll have their hands in your handbag or whatever and fiddle on your phone. The idea here is that it's a person that does not respect that simple boundary or even a time boundary. Forever they're late or they're early. They dictate. You don't dictate. They feel superior to others, so they look down on them, and intelligence, looks, talents, and they will let you know that somewhere there they will criticize your body, they will criticize your mind, your comments. And, I'll talk about Christian narcissists in a follow-up program. I'm going to talk about that too. There are actually books written on pastors and narcissism. Yes, Christians also can be narcissistic. But this superiority typically exceeds the narcissist's actual abilities. So it's interesting, they are not really that superior or talents, and they overestimate their own emotional intelligence. They think they're really great, but they don't realize that they're not really so great. And the idea here is what happened with a narcissist, and if you want to understand where it comes from, I'm now interrupting myself. But where it originates from, and you'll have to go and look at all the theories, and it becomes really complex, psychoanalytic theories, and some of the object relations theories. But they have rejection inside of themselves. So they did not almost internalize a stable, good mother and father picture. Almost they are rejected, and they've got this worthlessness. So they love themselves, and then they build this false image inside of themselves of how great they are and how wonderful they are, and then they what they do is their own love sustains this, and they have to work against this feeling of worthlessness and shame and not feeling good enough, this low self-esteem. It's in a sense they're stuck in almost a baby stage of narcissism, says Freud. They didn't grow out of it. They didn't realize that there is the self and the other. There are two entities. It's yourself and then another person. They are still a baby, sees himself and his mother as one. They didn't really differentiate those two and then see that mother love them, and they have self-worth, and now what they're sitting with now is a sense of rejection. There might have been trauma, there might have been an injury there to their self, rejection, abandonment, whatever, and that child is feeling that, and then they internalize it. That is the self-worth, but now they're protecting that, they're defending themselves against that through loving themselves. And then you come into a relationship with them, and then you feed that false self. You have to keep that up. You are there to meet their needs so that you can keep up this thing. And then once you criticize them, what you do is you're actually bringing the real self out, because that's the way they are acting. They're dismissing you. They are then dismissing all of your needs because their needs are so important. But if you criticize them, then you're actually pointing out this worthless feeling. Then it's your fault that they feel this worthless. It's not that they have injured you and they're taking ownership for it. They see you and themselves here, your needs, your feelings, their needs, their feelings, their behavior, your behavior. Where's the line? And they can distinguish the two people. No. You are in a sense a servant of their feelings and their behavior, and then that's why the subservient person serves them well. So if you then, if they are in control, then everything's okay. If you meet their needs and they're in control, then it's more or less okay. But then that's the only way you can really survive around a narcissist, just to meet all their needs. They're right, they're never wrong. They also cannot be wrong, because once they acknowledge that they're wrong, they have to deal with all these feelings inside, but they're defending themselves against it and building this false self-image, and you have to feed that false self-image, and it's hard work to keep it up. Any case, so then they suffer from extreme perfectionism, and get enraged if you don't perform according to their standards. They control what's going on around them. They have to remain in control to keep this this control over people. Otherwise, they can't show that weakness or that vulnerability, the weakness. What does the Bible say? In your weakness lies your strength. So in your dependence on the Lord. Can you see that they're not then dependent on the Lord either? So in a sense, there they see, they don't really see you as a separate person with feelings and needs, and they don't really care about it, because you are there to feed this, and because they cannot really see you as somebody separate, because they only see themselves, and they're only obsessed, in a sense. They're stuck in this world inside. Now, I'm not trying to point out that they are victims of this and they cannot get out of it, and it's almost like they are slaves to this pattern. No, they're supposed to work with this, and you're supposed to think, because when you're in a relationship and you receive feedback from another person about your behavior and how it's affected them, that's an opportunity to consider. But what it brings up is this feeling, all these feelings. But then they should acknowledge it, bring it to mind, and work with this feeling of shame and worthlessness and the rejection. And no matter how many times you compliment them, what you'll just be doing is just compliment this image. And if you criticize, then you bring up this image, and then you elicit the defense. And then that's where you bring the narcissistic injury. But we'll talk about that a bit more. But you injure them, that means you bring this thing out, and then the narcissistic rage comes to protect themselves against this injury. They don't want to feel this. That's why they don't deal with their stuff. They don't acknowledge their problems. They blame you for everything. So by blaming, it's externalizing it. It's away from them. It's your fault that they feel like this. You have to fix it by now loving them and doing this and doing that and obeying. And once they have control over you, they're in the one-up, then you're more harmless. Then they feel that sense of power. So it's toxic. But you get, and I'm not referring just to males or females, although the research shows there are more males that struggle with this, but females also do. Any case, they have a constant excessive need for validation then and attention, meaning that you have to feed that. Some of them have expressed that through sex. So they pursue sex with their wives like nobody's business. Or they would express that through, we'll look at females as well, through their bodies and clothing or whatever. So if they don't get that validation, they feel that discouraged feelings, the depression, the unloved feeling. You've rejected them. So you've not now, you bought chocolates for the family, but you didn't buy their favorite chocolate. Now they're upset with you, and they give you the cold shoulder the whole evening, and you get manipulation. And they feel easily rejected. So they have this sense of self that's so strong, but once you start criticizing, they are actually very hypersensitive. So they blame and shame others. They also shame others, and they never accept responsibility. So I saw this. And I've actually heard people accusing their partners of narcissism, but then acting like narcissists, blaming and shaming, not accepting responsibility for anything, saying it's all the partner's fault. And the dilemma is, when you're in a relationship like this, sometimes the partner actually does things that then hurt them. And you know what happens then? Then it is the partner's fault. Then it's the partner's fault. Then they just blame that partner even more because now they have evidence against the partner. So if another person does make a mistake, they will intentionally shame them in an effort to damage that person's self-worth, so that they don't think they're better than me, or they have to come and I am going to forgive them. I'm in the one-up, you know. They get pleasure from putting people down and causing them harm. It's tough. And they lack empathy, like I said, and compassion, and that's an important one. They can sometimes fake empathy or actually mimic it. I saw it in practice. They mimic it. They say they understand, but they don't understand. Hey Jan, lekker. Can you explain the difference between narcissists and sociopaths? Yes, I will do so. But they lack empathy and compassion, so they may scoff at somebody's misfortune, or they fail to feel sympathy. They don't actually care. When they give you something, it is for a reason, and there's some kind of control in it. It's not like there's a heart behind it, and they have this sense of entitlement. So you should do things, and they're angry at people who do not, like they always deserve something better and greater, and so there's not humility. Can you hear it? And there's an arrogance, a conceitedness, because there's a fragile self-esteem, and they're hypersensitive. But let me answer the question with narcissists and sociopaths. Narcissists are not as extreme as sociopaths. Sociopaths and psychopaths are not really distinguished in literature. Robert Hare does. He distinguishes them. Psychopaths, I think, being the worst case. Sociopaths being a little bit better, and narcissists just being extremely self-obsessed. But the motivations are not necessarily against the world, because when you couple narcissistic personality disorder with antisocial personality disorder, antisocial doesn't mean they don't want to go to a braai. It means that they are against society's values and laws. The narcissists easily break laws because they just do that. That's what they do. I mean, they make the laws. They're above the law. They'll do whatever they want. So, and when you're a sociopath, you don't care about other people. And when you're a psychopath, you have no. Sociopaths can also mimic empathy. Psychopaths don't even have it at all. They don't care about you at all. They just do what they want to do. But a narcissist does not necessarily want to go against society's laws or act maliciously. But there is an extreme form of narcissism where they can become extremely angry and have these anger outbursts, and they become violent. So there is a fine line between the two, between narcissists and sociopaths. But I think I'll go and spend some more time for you on that one to give exact details. But that's the big picture. So you get narcissistic personality disorder, and it will develop into sociopathy and then psychopathy when it's really at the end. But it's all three of them when they're in that malignant rage area. So within narcissistic personality disorder, you also get a spectrum. So you get a spectrum within narcissism, and then within NPD you also get the spectrum from almost mild to malignant, and then you get sociopathy, and then you get psychopathy. So it becomes it's like extensive. So, and they exaggerate their skills and talents and achievements. I heard this guy in a Christian sense, I've got the fivefold ministry, I'm called as this and I'm called as that, and it's actually insecurity speaking. But you cannot challenge that. You cannot even give any kind of criticism. I've seen this in practice where even the slightest, nicest kinds of criticism or pointing out some of their behavior, they vehemently defend themselves. But it's very apparent sometimes that they're not that good at that. So they will do things, and they will sometimes even embarrass themselves. But you will then have to applaud that, you know. They are preoccupied with success and with power and outward appearances, status symbols, achieving that through money and authority and position, leadership, you know. They want to be there. They have the trophy wife, they have the big house, the yard, the boat, all those things. And that picture really exists. So that, imagine that person, he's there, he exudes all this power and glamour, and his wife is there and she looks like Barbie doll. You get that picture, but can you see that is not all over the show? What you rather have is a lot of narcissism all over the show. But in any case, and they may feel they they constantly make you feel that you are not good enough. And yeah, it's lots of things. They are self-righteous. They believe that they do everything right, and they never make mistakes. If you point out something to them, they start pointing out your faults. And it's like it's just like it's so frustrating to have conflict with them, and they think that everybody else is really actually ignorant. They scoff at people, and they like I said, they like to control people, and they actually do not really talk about their true feelings and emotions. It's because they hide them, so they are shielded, and they hide their own feelings. They will talk about some things, like even anger or whatever, but it's justifiable and it's blaming, or some self-pity. So when you look at some of these things, they don't listen to this quote. They don't listen. They just wait to talk. So it's about what's going on in their minds. They don't really care what's happening with you when you talk to them. It's about them. And if they listen to you, what they will then say to you is controlling things, like you should do this, you shouldn't do that, like a one-up. Like they know better than you. I've seen some of these people instruct me on psychology. It was really interesting. They don't necessarily keep faithfulness in relationships. They are unfaithful. It's because they break rules, and they use seduction as well. And it's about what you can do for them, remember? And it gives them a kick. It gives them that power, and actually jump between relationships. It's difficult. And with friendships, sometimes they will play a role in a friendship. For a while, they will play a role, and they will sometimes have friends that are also similar. And they are very hypersensitive to any form of criticism. So don't try to give them even the slightest of critiques. You will damage that ego, and then you will get that incredible difficulty. And what they will also do is they will manipulate you to do special favors for them, and they'll just not consider your boundaries there. And they might even say thank you in a sense, but it is to manipulate you. They don't really handle stress well. They don't really handle change well. They want things done their way, and if they don't get what they want, they get upset and angry, and then they don't think of their share in the problem. And if they fail, they also feel incredibly depressed or upset, and they all either blame others or they sulk. Can you see these extremes? Now let me share some of those types of narcissism with you. So you get that overt, grandiose type, you know them, you've seen them, they are the movie stars kind of thing. They're selfish, they're overbearing, they exaggerate their self-esteem, and they come across as very confident and assertive and sometimes bullyish, but they are actually the opposite. But then you get the covert, vulnerable narcissist, so the one who is actually afraid. You think it's just this overwhelming dominant person, but no, this one is more introverted. They are sensitive to criticism. You can't criticize them. They have low self-esteem. They're very defensive. They're passive aggressive. They don't take any inputs, and they're less likely. They don't have a good self-esteem, and they don't have this confidence. But they're actually selfish in what the decisions they make and the way they treat you. And I've seen this in couples, the husband being in this sensitive narcissism, and the wife just so revolves. Her needs are put last, and she just cares for this fragile soul husband, but he just makes selfish decisions all the time, selfish decisions. it's a you know. And then there's a communal narcissist. They view themselves as this good guy, you know, and they claim to care deeply about fairness, and they're so supportive and selfless, but they're not really that. They actually want power, social power, and there's a sense of superiority and entitlement. They don't. So then eventually what they actually do then doesn't match what they say. So they're actually selfish in a sense. And then antagonistic narcissism is it's in contrast with the communal narcissist. They take a highly competitive approach. So with any social interactions, you know, when they talk to you, there's a winner and a loser. Almost like the grandiose one will also be that. So they can come across as hostile and yeah, it's difficult to or sarcastic, or they have this kind of what we call an insincere wit, you know, but it's not genuine. They're not genuine. They're just and just humble, you know. And then the malignant narcissist, oh yeah, this one, that's the destructive one. That and they have all those signs of narcissism, but they might be aggressive, paranoid, sadistic, even. They even enjoy people experiencing pain, or animals experiencing pain. They show this what we call the antisocial behavior. So they don't care about your safety or regards. I've heard them throw children, hit. You know, that's where the violence and those things come in. Especially if you cross them, if you give that criticism or that if you don't meet those needs. Okay. So you can hear there's lots to say about this, and let's just have a look at some of the ways they think. Here's a narcissistic profile, some of what they call the core beliefs of this, and that comes from a questionnaire, so one of the leading questionnaires. It's intolerable if I'm not accorded my due respect or don't get what I'm entitled to. You see, other people should recognize how special I am. Only people as brilliant as I am understand me. Now, it sounds ridiculous, you know, to think people think this, but they think it in their own way, you know. Geez, you know, they don't understand me, you know. It's just because they don't understand me, they don't get me, you know. And in their minds, I think, or they might even say it, you know, they're stupid, they're idiots. And then, since I'm so superior, I'm entitled to special treatment and privileges, meaning I'm better than you. You're a lot of you know, a lot of peasants, you know. Other people should satisfy my needs, meaning they should do this for me, you know. Why didn't he come and mow the lawn today, you know? Why, he should come and do that. But he's unreasonable. He's asking that for that person. You should come and work on a Sunday. But boss, it's a Sunday. Yeah. You know, he expects this because it's entitlement. It's my project. I got this building. You know, you got to do this. And since I'm so talented, people should go out of their way to promote my career, you know, and that's where people then become, you know, it's very selfish, and they say, and some of the rules don't apply to them. Okay, so as you can see, it's a lot of these difficulties, and it goes into their relationships. Number one, that's where you find it. There's a nice acronym, SPECIAL, you know, the S is for special. I'm special and unique. The P is for I'm preoccupied with my fantasies of success and power and beauty and all those things. The E is I'm entitled. The C is I'm conceited. The I is I've got interpersonal exploitation. And the A is I'm arrogant. That's interesting. So it's like Icarus. He was flying too high, but then he fell. Okay, so you've heard a lot now. I want to come to a place of I'm going to share some elements of how a normal, healthy personality functions, and then how this is not with a narcissist. So, you know, when we look at some of the personality traits here, which is very interesting, 4 key elements of personality functioning is identity, self-direction, empathy, and intimacy. So identity, that is the experience of yourself as unique. That's normal now. Clear boundaries between yourself and others. You have a stable self-esteem. You can accurately look at your behavior and think about yourself. What did I do there? You accept feedback from other people. You listen to it. You integrate it, and you think of yourself and others, and so you distinguish. And you can work with your emotions. You can name your emotions. What do I feel? You can therefore they say you claim it, and then you express it. That means you frame it, and then that's how you own it. And then you can work, go and jog when you're upset. You can go and write something. You go and pray. You talk to the Lord. You express your feelings. You work out how you're going to deal with this conflict. A narcissist doesn't do this. Identity is not formed. Like I said earlier, there's an enmeshment. When you do something, or you say something, or you even step on their foot, you've now hurt them. How can you step on my foot? Why do it's like they're entitled. Everybody should, it revolves around them. When they go to the airport, people should get out of the way. Why is the queue so long? They're irritated with everything. The machine doesn't work because they are in a hurry. This thing should now work. It's not that they see their place as one of 7 billion people, and yes, God loves them, but there's lots of other people who share the planet and love. There's lots of reasons for long queues, and so when they are discomforted, they are very upset. But you can see a healthy identity, and in Christ, a healthy identity in Christ. When you have a Christian narcissist, he says he has a Christian identity, but he doesn't. It's also a facade. It's part of this facade. I'm this good Christian, but he doesn't really integrate it. So it's not really seen in his behavior. The behavior that you'll see is fake kindness, fake love. It's for other purposes. It's not really to love the Lord and his people. And then self-direction. That means you can pursue your coherent goals, your short-term, long-term goals. You take other people into account as well, but you take ownership for your goals. You do whatever is necessary within healthy boundaries, and you self-reflect in the process. Whereas the narcissist doesn't really, they direct themselves, but you have to do a lot of the work too. And they pull in a lot of people and they manipulate them to achieve their goals. And they either blame them or control them or manipulate and soft soap them to get them to fulfill their goals. They're not actually lazy in a sense. They're self-made, but they're also lazy. And then empathy, the third one, where, like I said, where you can comprehend other people's feelings and experiences and think of them. You can even tolerate the fact that they feel and think differently from you, and that they even disagree with you, because you have understanding for where do they come from and where you come from. Not the narcissist, no. They can't tolerate that. Like I said earlier, they cannot. It is their perspective, that's right. You have to adjust to their perspective. So it's very difficult. So they don't understand their effect on others. Now, when you have two of this in a relationship, they blame each other. And usually the one is covert and overt. And then intimacy. That's where you can develop a genuine connection that has depth with other people. That means you can share feelings, you can listen to needs, you can meet those needs, you can connect, you can express how you feel, and you desire that closeness with others. You seek out their needs too, and there's a closeness and a mutuality. You think of others, you really show interest. They don't really connect with you. It's about their behaviors, it's about their needs, it's about what they want. If they meet your needs, you have to in some way give it back. It's not unconditional, it's conditional. So you're forever paying off this debt. It sucks. So many nice questions. I'm going to try and answer some of them. Hey, Christel Pinar, thank you. Is narcissistic behavior more prevalent amongst males or females? Males. Is it equals? No, it's not equal, so more males. Borderline, more females. But we'll look at that. Load shedding. Okay, will it be? Yes, it will. This program will be available a bit later. Also on our YouTube channel, Matters of the Soul. Nicole Libber, is it possible to be antisocial but still have strong narcissistic traits? Yes, antisocial usually share a lot of narcissistic traits because although they're described separately, I think they actually run. When you're antisocial, you exhibit a lot of narcissism because you just don't care about others. And then there's Zarina Sali, passive and aggressive behavior. Dangerous, actually passive aggressive. Yes, if you have passive aggressive behavior and aggressive, so they have both. So if they can't punish you outrightly, aggressively so, and take the money, or have these anger outbursts and jump in the car and race away or break stuff. I had narcissists in my practice. The guy would smash all the windows in the house. Or the passive, they'll ignore you for a week and they'll do stuff to spite you. Madeleine, that says, is there any advice or guidelines that can be followed when you work for a narcissist to ensure a normal, fair, peaceful working environment? That is a good question. I'm going to address that in one of the upcoming programs. I mean, is it possible for the narcissist side of to come forward with the use of alcohol? Yes. Substance abuse is a part of it, and they actually abuse substance also to alleviate some of this internal stress, because they don't regulate their emotions. And they cause so many conflicts around them that people sometimes reject them then. So they actually elicit a lot of rejection from others. People don't like them, and then they have to do something because they don't want to regulate this. They don't want to go inside and check and take ownership and work with the feelings. No, they just want to get away from it. So they drink and whatever. They feel that they are entitled to everything. Yes, indeed. Powerful. Thank you, Tanya. And Shani, divorce with a narcissist. Yeah, that's. I think that is like a whole program on itself, because they don't play fair, and you've got to have a very clever a lawyer that helps you, that where not to provoke unnecessary fights, but you have to catch them off guard in a sense. You have to prepare yourself and prepare all the things. That's usually what I do with my clients. We get them prepared before we break the news that we want a divorce, so that they are a few steps ahead. But usually the narcissists have set up things and they are deceptive, so they lie. They don't remember, they break the rules. That's why they have a fake obedience to God, so they can actually play a Christian role as well. So no, but there's a lot to say about the divorce one. I think I should spend some more time on that. Elise, when you have a parent narcissist, does that mean that I will be one, have a lot of traits? No, it doesn't. That's actually a good question, because it's also where does it originate from? That's the biopsychosocial spiritual model. If you've heard some of my other programs, I've referred to that. So biological, genetics, they don't really know where it comes from, but it's a lot of things. I think it's got to do with some genetics. It's got to do with nature, nurture, your genetics, but then also your parenting. But it does not mean you're going to be a narcissist with narcissistic personality disorder. You might have some narcissistic traits, like all of us do, and you'll have to then work with, so that it becomes healthy narcissism, so it becomes healthy self-love, self-care, self-compassion, not unhealthy. And that you work with when you get feedback from others, and you have to distinguish what is realistic and what not. So people can criticize you sometimes. If you work for a narcissist, like somebody said there, you will experience a lot of unfounded accusations and control. And you'll have to have somebody else in your life to help you distinguish between the reality of that, whether it is true or not. Okay, so now I've shared some, and there are some more questions. How do you distinguish parental authority and narcissism? Sure, that's a good question. I'm going to spend some time thinking about that, and if you follow me in the next couple of programs, I'll come back to you on that one. And Veronica, how do you help someone with this? That's the golden question. So the idea with helping a narcissist is to help them to see. So psychology has a lot of modes, or let's say schools of thought. So if you have the psychoanalytic school of thought, what they want to do is to help that person see their illusion that they're building, this illusion internally, and their real feelings of self worth that is low, and also to see some parts of their past and how that is playing into their present, unmet needs from their childhood that they've got, usually from a parental acceptance, mother nurturing, acceptance from a father. And to be honest, I think that does make sense, and a lot of the rejection from fathers and mothers just does play a big role. Control, harsh environment where there's a lack of empathy, where there's a narcissistic environment, can create this. If the child then develops this false self, But what you then in therapy do is you want to help the person see this, but then interpersonal therapy, in interactive therapy, would want them to see their effect on others, and then role play. How would that make you feel? And to help them to distinguish the two personalities, that there's the other person and there's you, but then to help them in a safe environment to deal with this. But narcissists don't think they've got something wrong with them, and they don't like to be confronted with the feelings. It's only when the loss or the price that they're going to pay is like really bad, they're going to lose big time, then they'll come for some kind of help. So they don't seek out help. So that's a dilemma. I just want to give you something that Karen Horney said. She said there's 3 general personality patterns, and I think this is applicable to everybody, but I'm going to show you how it's applicable to narcissists. She says a personality can be understood as positioning yourself in relation to others. The 3 general personality patterns are when you, number 1, move away from other people, or you avoid other people. So you are a person who avoids others, or you move against other people. You are one who moves against others, or you move towards other people. Can you see? You either move away, against, or towards. But the narcissists position themselves above others. So they are above other people. They are the genius, the girl is the princess. Now let's look at some. I just want to show you some ideas of narcissism in females. Behaviours in 2013, that's now a researcher, describes the female narcissists as displaying a pageantry of pouts, sniffles, and sassy smugness. I like that. So she says that they are able to effectively elicit self-doubt, guilt, and feelings of rejection in others for their own gain. I saw this the other day. She actually walked with her nose up like this, looked down, and they've got a very confident walk, and criticizing people, and even in using the Lord, as their backup. As such, they get people to run around them. They also need constant admiration and validation. They're this pop star, They're prone to cosmetic surgery, dieting, excessive exercise, eating disorders, because they have to maintain that external look. So the physical looks outside, actually, this false self is then also embodied in this physical look. And I see this actually, that that their physical look really starts to change, like dramatically, and perfecting their looks are high on their agenda, and therefore the external things, the accessories, the clothes, the car, the husband, are very important. And men, hear this quote from Mae West: men are like linoleum floors, lay them right and you can walk all over them for years. Can you hear the control? In a biblical sense, that would be Jezebel, the Jezebel spirit, the Jezebel person. So I want to share with you, and I'm going to do this in the next one of the next discussions, would be what we call a victim blaming personality style that is linked with a narcissistic personality, but in an interactional model. So I'm going to share that with you in another program. But I want to share one thing biblically with you today, which is just interesting from the Bible. A beautiful example of narcissism. If you go and look at the book of Esther, you'll see the narcissist. So let me first say, Proverbs 21 verse 24 gives this verse. Proud, haughty, scoffer are his names, who acts with insolent pride. That sounds like the guy. And insolence is a noun, and it's contemptuously rude or impertinent behavior or speech. There's a nice book on this. I think it's D.C. Robertson, The First Will Be Last, A Biblical Perspective on Narcissism. So what he says is, this is very interesting. So Haman in the Bible, I just know him in Afrikaans, Haman, Haman. He's this typical narcissist. Just hear this. So he's this narcissist, this scoffer that is filled with insolent pride. So now if you look at the descriptions of narcissists, this is Esther 5 verses 10 to 12. You can't believe it. So Haman went to his house and sent for his friends and his wife Zeresh, his poor wife Zeresh. Then Haman recounted to them the glory of his riches and the number of his sons, and every instance where the king had magnified him, and how he, the king, had promoted him above the princes and servants of the king. Haman also said, even Esther the queen, let no one but me come with the king to the banquet which she has prepared. And tomorrow also I'm to be invited by her with the king. Can you see? Center of attention, just loving himself, just worshipping himself. So it's narcissistic self-aggrandizement. It's a big word, but he's praising himself. So it's the insolent pride. He wants to get rid of Mordecai, and he hates the Jews, so there's this hate for this people. It's just the one-up. It's just the I'm better than you thing. Almost Hitler as well. I hate you. You know, the book of Esther is then, but obviously God has a plan in the background. And you know what is happening here is, hear this now in Esther 6 verses 1 to 5. So now during the night the king could not sleep, so he gave an order to bring the book of records, the chronicles, that they were read before the king. It was found written that Mordecai had reported concerning Bigthana and Teresh, two of the king's eunuchs who were doorkeepers, that they had sought to lay hands on King Ahasuerus. The king said, what honor and dignity has been bestowed on Mordecai for this? Then the king's servants said, no, nothing's been done for him. So the king said, who is in the court? Now Haman just entered the court, in the outer court of the king's palace, in order to speak to the king about hanging Mordecai on the gallows which he'd prepared for him. But the king's servant said to him, behold, Haman is standing in the court. And the king said, let him come in. Now hear this. He's a narcissist, Haman. He is delusionally assuming that he's now the one that the king is going to honor. He's oblivious of the reality of what is actually taking place. The king is going to kill Haman in the end, but he's going to actually honor Mordecai. So then Haman comes and says to the king what should be done for this person that the king wants to honor. He says, oh, they must put him on the king's horse and put the robe of the king around him, take him through the streets. But now in his mind, look, the Bible says it. So Haman came in and said to the king, what is to be done for the man whom the king desires to honor? And Haman said to himself, whom would the king desire to honor more than me? Can you see? He's the center of attention. It's just so interesting that the Bible so reflects the story. Then Haman said to the king, for the man that the king desires to honor. Then he elaborates on how he must be paraded through the streets on the king's horse, with the king's clothing, with the king's crown. So almost to say, I want to be equal with you, king. Can you see that is Satan's sin? I want to be equal with the king. I want to be king. It's pride. So it's pride that brings you to a fall. So it's Satan's sin as well. I want to be God. I want to be worshipped. So it's I feel insecure in myself. I don't feel good enough that God has made me the way I am. And yes, I've got weaknesses and I'm broken. But he has given me forgiveness in Christ, and I can receive that, and I can humble myself before him. No, I want to one-up myself and say I'm equal with you. So in the end, that's what Haman wanted to do. Is he mistakenly thought that he was going to be honored, but he was actually trying to be on the same level as the king. So when we, in our relationship with the Lord, humble ourselves, the Lord says he gives grace, but he resists the proud. You know that verse. So the Haman's insolent pride led to his sudden downfall, and it's the same here. Narcissists also experience sudden downfall. They actually experience social isolation after a few years. So people just don't want to be with them. They're just not nice, and they experience in the end usually, if they don't experience financial ruin because they're impulsive and they think they know everything, they in the end experience loneliness and lots of rejection. So that you can see how the Bible's also showing this, and that's the grandiose narcissist Haman. But then you get the other narcissist, the vulnerable one. He's not so covert, but King Saul, he's so vulnerable. So David did something. David immediately shone a bit, trying to praise the king, winning the wars for him. Suddenly, David receives more praise. He wants to kill David. Can you see the injury? And then the rage. And now he's just after David. I mean, David was serving him, playing music, chasing away the demons. No, he hates David with everything. David was the one who killed Goliath, who helped him. But now he feels rejected. He doesn't feel good enough. You see, his pride and his disobedience with the Lord has now led to rejection from God as well. And now he doesn't want to accept responsibility and just own up and just make amends. No, he's going to justify himself and just keep on justifying. And that led to his downfall as well. So you can see how the Bible has described that thing. And there's lots of those. Cain as well. Cain and Abel. Cain, the ultimate narcissist there, also feeling so injured by God that he justifies himself and then kills his brother. So it goes to a great length, this, you know. So we're going to have a few more lives on this. I see Chubb's got up with us, but you can see how interesting this is. Now we're going to look at in some of the next programs, we're going to spend some more time on narcissism, and we will end up with, as we go through, we'll look at narcissism and bipolar borderline personality disorder. Why do they get married? And then also how to deal with a narcissist if you're married, like some of the questions I'm going to weave them into my talks. What do you do when you work for one? What do you do when you've got a family member? How do you handle that conflict and those situations? But I am also going to do a webinar where there will be live question and answers as well, and you can talk about this. And it's going to be a paid webinar, but I'm not going to break your bank, you know. But it's so we'll keep you posted on that too. Please go and have a look at our just an ad break on our YouTube channel, Matters of the Soul, and on Facebook there's a video tab that you can go, and all our other videos are also there, but they are nicely organized in our playlist section in our YouTube channel and on the website. And you can have a look at all of my workshops. I also present workshops at the moment, some workshops for trauma counselors and for couples, fair fighting, that the narcissists don't do. They don't fight fair. Okay, great stuff. So tonight we looked at narcissism, what it is, the narcissism spectrum from healthy to pathological, and then the narcissistic personality disorder. And inside there you get that also almost like the light narcissistic personality disorder, light, and then to the heavy, you know, and then the sociopathy, and then the psychopathy, and the psychopaths, you know. And then I discussed some of those common traits with you that where you can see that quite common with people. And then the important thing, like I said, look at yourself, and then also say, Lord, thank you. I know I'm also struggling with some narcissistic traits, and that's why I need your love, and I need your spirit, and I need your acceptance. But you know what's the good thing about what Jesus did for us? He gave us that gift of no condemnation. So now we can be really honest before God. We can humble ourselves because of our sin. We receive that forgiveness and that righteousness before Him. And now we can be honest. We have to be honest. But now you could really be honest without condemnation. There's no condemnation. And that's why you can then look at that worthless feelings. Because we all deal with anxieties and feelings of worthlessness and pain and rejection. But it's about acknowledging that and acknowledging that weakness. And I'll talk about some of the therapy things as well that we do. Okay, great stuff. It's been wonderful spending time with you. Thank you very much for your questions. I really appreciate it. Yolandi, there's another, can a narcissist be cured? Ooh, that's a big question. I'll answer that in a will they always need treatment? That is a very good question. It is a pervasive pattern, but it is not necessarily something that can be fully cured according to the psychology. According to the Lord, we'll have a look there and look at some biblical examples as well. Okay, it's been wonderful spending time with you. Please keep on. You can send us your questions as well via Messenger. We will have a look at those, and then we will spend time with you next Monday, same time. Okay, God bless you. Keep well.